Hi, I'm Sarah, and I've been the director of the co-op since it feels like the beginning of time, but it's only since I was on the board in 1990. Can you believe that, Cynthia? And 1991, I've been, it's exciting, it's educational to meet and program and educate and show films, and I make films, and it's to write about films. It's just and the most stimulating environment to be in my humble opinion. So it's my great pleasure to introduce tonight's brilliant curator of dance on film, although we didn't name it dance on film, Anri. He's sitting in our co-op office.
Thank you so much, for that introduction. Let me start with Cynthia Madansky, who I've been in conversation with throughout this program, and she's been really encouraging all throughout, and I'm very grateful for her for all that encouragement. Cynthia Madansky is a multidisciplinary artist working in a variety of media, including drawing, painting, film, and video. The two short films we selected for the program, Ana Pina Teresa and Alex and Jose, show how Cynthia integrates hybrid narrative and performative traditions, creating a sort of personal testimony through dance.
Hi, thank you very much for coming, and we're honored to be in this program. It's really, I've watched it many times and find the diversity of dance films or choreography through film to be really an interesting perspective. So thank you for this, for including two of my dance films in this program.
And thank you, Cynthia, for being here. So now join me in welcoming Jacques Raynal.
Bonjour, bonjour, bonsoir.
I wish I were in Paris.
No, thank you so much. I love Sarah, you're great, and Harry, and all you. And I miss New York a lot. I haven't been there for 1 year, and it's wonderful to see your face because, okay, I love the French, but at the same time, there is no one like you guys and girls. I'm so glad to be here, even though I haven't seen all your films, but I know, and thank you for...
Thank you, Jackie.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jackie. It's a pleasure to have you.
So the two films in the program, if not everybody has seen them, one is Alex and Jose, and it's shot on 16 millimeter in 2004. And it's a very simple film, really. It's two bodies in a landscape. Mostly I see myself as a landscape filmmaker, and I like to work with dancers because I find that they can understand and integrate dance in a way like a painter can, because they really understand composition and foreground and background and how to move within a landscape. So I have made many dance films since Alex and Jose, actually, and I never knew that I would actually start making dance films, but to date I've probably made about 8 dance films, which is very separate from my, other work. Ana Pina Teresa was inspired by a year of living in Rome and working on a bigger project which also had dance in it about fascism and architecture. And in Rome, the monumental fascist architecture remains, and I interpreted 3 movements from Rome Open City, Rossellini's film, where Anna Magnani, who plays Pina based on the character Teresa, all the fascist police are coming to take her fiancé away, and she's downstairs and she's fighting the fascist police, and then she's running after her fiancé who's being taken away by the police, and then she gets shot and killed. And so I wanted to do interventions in fascist architectural spaces in Rome. So I worked on a larger film called E42 at the EUR, and the dance component was also about interventions in space that has been kind of, I wouldn't say altered, because in Rome actually they keep the fascist history intact, And this was a former fencing studio of Mussolini. And it's an incredible architectural space that was then converted to a tribunal of the mafia. And the dancer that I worked with, her father was murdered by the mafia. So for her, it was also a very important, the political space had significance over time and then also had significance for this dancer in particular. So it was really more of a conceptual approach that always took me the same way with Alex and Jose. These were friends of mine. Alex is, she passed away, she was a filmmaker and she was pregnant. And I was thinking about Jean Cocteau and his films and how he works with corridors and again, negative and positive space. So I worked with her on this maneuvering in this corridor. And then with Jose, he was at the time really a very avid flamenco dancer. And I sort of wanted to honor my friendships. So that's how that film evolved. I think for all of my dance films, I always, because I don't really, I mean, I identify as a filmmaker, but I'm really an artist. And I start with a concept. And for me, it was being in Italy and seeing this fascist architecture and having this desire to do interventions in these spaces that, you know, are marked and unmarked at the same time, this conflation of time, this conflation of memory and history that happens. So it was very clear. I usually choose the landscape or the architectural space first that I want to work with in relation to the concept. And then I usually find a dancer. And in this case, Marta Chiappina, usually I work with dancers who are also choreographers. But in this case, she's like, no, I'm not a choreographer. Let's work together on the choreography of the piece. So of course I'm not a dancer and I'm not a choreographer, but I could say, okay, these are the three movements from the film Roma Città Aperta that I want to work with in this space. And then we did a lot of rehearsals and developed the piece together. The concept was very clear, and then we rehearsed quite a lot in different studios in Rome, and then we basically just shot it in an hour, you know, on an Anri, and that was that. That was it. They gave us an hour to work in the space. I was on a fellowship at the American Academy in Rome, and there was a magnificent woman, Julia, who got permissions for the artists to shoot in different places. So I asked, you know, she assisted me to get permission to shoot there.
Having seen some of the other films in the program, you brought this idea up about how you see a community and collaboration in dance.
I think I was referring to, like, specifically Henry Hills's work, which was shot on the Lower East Side, and it was such a moment in history where the Lower East Side, I'm not sure what year it was, the 80s or 90s, where the Lower East Side was a very particular landscape. You know, growing up in New York, I knew it in the 60s and 70s and then the 80s and the 90s. And the dance community in this film basically intervened in the space. Again, it's a landscape film. And it was all about duets or not very many solos. It was all about how dancers were interacting with each other within the landscape.
Right.
And there's kind of this meta text that's happening about community in that film in particular, but also in your film, Jackie, and even in the video art piece that is which is Doris's piece, which is so different. Because you see the interaction with the video art community. You see the dialogue that's happening between the dancers themselves on the screen, but also with this dialogue with other artists. So there's this constant, I would say, negotiation of space and time and movement that's happening, which of course forms community. I think with a lot of my films, the insider-outsider position that you have as a viewer informs how you read the film. So for Italians who know this film, if you just say, oh, Anna Pina Teresa, even unconsciously, they might say, Roma Città Aperta, and they know the Sala Scherma. And so they know the history of this space, so they have a very different reading of it versus here that it might just, it could be interpreted in many different ways. So I think that's always a very, I don't know, it's a very tricky piece with the kind of dance films that I make about the landscape. The more you know, the symbolism of the landscape, and perhaps the gestures and movements, perhaps the deeper the reading is of the actual dance choreography.
I was a dancer when I was very little, you know, ballet dancer. And I was always interested in dance, different dance. I mean, I didn't even know Martha Graham, but I heard about it. And I was in Paris and in the 60s, and you know, it was a long time ago. I met Sona Band because I was also a student and in film too, but I was looking for painting, and Sona Band were at the gallery on the quay of La Seine, and I met with Bob Rauschenberg. She was, and with Bob, there were, at the time it was not Merce, but he was coming, and Sonovan described me who was Merce Cunningham, and I was like, wow, you know, it was so different than ballet dancing. I didn't know, and Martha Graham and Yvonne Raynal and all these people, they were like enigma for me, you know. And I said to my friend who was a cameraman, why don't we make a film together, you know, because they were coming in 62 or 63 in Paris at the Théâtre de l'Est parisien. And actually I was very lucky because I was learning camera work, and my boyfriend had one of the prototype of the camera Couton, which is a handheld camera connected with the Nagra. And it was like revolutionary in the documentary because you couldn't, you didn't have to be next to the microphone, you know, with the camera to register the sound. And so we met with Merce, and we met when they came. And Merce was very reluctant a little bit to be filmed. We said, oh, you know, we are good people, we are 60 millimeter, we love what you do. We didn't see anything yet. And then we start to film the rehearsal of all the performance. And it was amazing because actually John Cage was much more like our artistic director and, you know, ambassador towards the dancer. I remember they were so poor. I mean, they were so, you know, we were like, wow. And they were so dedicated to what they were doing, you know, and it was really, for me, it was incredible. I mean, I was like, wow, you know, it changed really my life of seeing dance, seeing not film, but the way he danced was a revolution. As I told you before, after this performance they did for a few days or weeks, they went to the opera, to the theater of the Champs-Élysées, and the opera people came, and they throw at them a sack of flour and tomato, you know, because they were so afraid that they could take their place or something like that. But that's not the film I make, but I always love the American and New Yorker and all that because you are the avant-garde. You are always incredibly, for me, you know, I mean, of course we had our avant-garde, but in terms of dance and even film, they were not very known, all this group of people, and Merce and Bob Rauschenberg doing the costume and the light and the decor, and we were like we fall in love with everybody, you know, like it was amazing. So that's, you know, that's the way we did it. We did it with prototype camera that were like very far away from Merce because he didn't like us to be too close, you know. And we get very good friend um, with John Cage. He was absolutely great help. Yeah, I was learning photography when I didn't make any school of film or anything like that, but I think I started to be first a photographer for the first issue of in Mexico, for the first issue of Les Grands Voyages. It was a format of books about you know, discovery of histories through the Mexico. And so I make a lot of photography. And then when I met with my boyfriend, he was like a great cameraman. And I started to load the camera, to learn how to load the camera. And but mostly I did le montage before I make the film. I was already a film editor. And I learned it in a laboratory. I learned it because in France, if you want to have your license to be a film editor, you have to work in a technical laboratory to develop the film, to make all the special effect, to do the mixing and everything. So before I make that film on Earth, I was really a photographer and then editor. And to be a filmmaker was not really my task because, as I said, it's a film of community between two great cameramen, Patrice Yers and Etienne Becker, and the soundman Ortion. And so for me, I was not really wanted to be a filmmaker. And then later on, 8 years later, I make Deux Fois, but no. So that's what I was most an editor than a filmmaker at that time.
Etienne Becker, for those who don't know, is Jacques Becker's son. Jacques Becker, one of the great French filmmakers of the 1940s and 1950s. Not as well known as perhaps he should be, but he had a retrospective recently at the Alliance Française in New York. And I got a chance to see many of his films, and he's quite an interesting filmmaker. So you were working with his son.
Etienne Becker was a great photographer, a great actually, what Etienne was is like he was such a like Penny Baker and like all these people who want to have and then Boviala, who did the Atom camera, they want to have a handheld camera. You know? So he was testing for that film in 16 millimeters the camera called La Couton. The Couton that was much lighter, you know, to record, and it was shot with a prototype of that camera, Couton, which later on was used by Penny Baker, was used by a lot of American filmmakers that were also making prototypes of very light camera. Well, you know, I mean, I use digital, of course. I mean, I'm a daughter of Jonas Mikas, who has also quit 16 millimeter to digital. But I think, you know, when you have a camera and 16 millimeter, and you have to think much more because of
it's true.
Time. It's, you know, you know that it's 11-minute shoot in a magazine, you know. So for editing, it's the same thing, you know. Now I don't teach, but I see that my assistants who are very young, that they ask me about their work, and you don't understand a thing because they go too fast. They want to be brilliant, you know, about the technology, but cinema is not that. It's not being brilliant. It's about, I don't know, if you for example, if you, you know, like with Word for editing, the editing is language. And if you do just like that without thinking before, and the digital now in terms of editing mostly, shooting also probably, because when you have this big camera, it's not because it's big or whatever, but it's like you think differently, totally, because the time is different. You know, now people, they use a lot of footage because it's free. Who cares, you know? So, and they don't have this kind of, for me too, you know, like to talk on the, I mean, I love that to be with you guys, but it's like, it's a bit too much, too close to, so the digital, you know, it will save probably a lot of business because it's cheaper. It's now nobody knows about loading film in a cinema, you know. Of course, everybody have to adapt to that, but I'm not against it, but I wish I can make my next film in 35 millimeter like Philippe Garrel. He's doing it all the time. Because it's really different image, different way of, you know, collaborating. It's slow.
We're collaborating with Revoir, and we
Yeah.
have 3 film collections coming up. Larry Gottheim, Storm de Hirsch, films that haven't been seen, and a collection of 15 of my films from 84 to now. And then we have 2 more. So we're actually collaborating with Revoir. So, and we distribute that DVD, right?
Yeah, that's right. So this is Jackie's film. And
now you can also buy this DVD.
Yeah, through us. I'll post a link where Revoir has a few of Jackie's films if you want to check them out. And I also posted a link. I also posted a link to Cynthia Madansky's Vimeo on Demand. So for anyone who wants to check out more of their work, it's in the chat. Thank you so much to Jackie Raynal and Cynthia Madansky one more time for being with us.
Bye, Cynthia. Bye, Greg.
Great program. Nice program.
Thank you, Henry. You're a great interviewer, and MM too.
Yes.
Bye-bye, Berenice.
Oui, Jackie.